Today, we're digging into a fascinating story from a real administrative law hearing. It's a bit of a puzzle, and we're calling it the case of the vanishing lien.
And really it all boils down to one kind of baffling question. How on earth can you lose a case when all the facts seem to prove you're right? Okay, let's get into it.
So here's the basic conflict. On one side, you've got a homeowner saying, hey, my HOA charged me a ton of unreasonable fees for a lien that the HOA itself admitted was invalid. And a lien, by the way, is just a legal claim on your property for an unpaid debt. But on the other side, the final ruling from the judge was simply, petition denied. How does that even happen?
To figure that out, we're going to walk through this entire case. It is a perfect, and I mean perfect, example of how the legal system can sometimes feel totally backwards. And it really shines a light on a crucial truth that goes way beyond this one homeowner's dispute. It all started with that lien, a legal claim that for all intents and purposes just disappeared into thin air.
Okay, so here's how it all went down. In June of 2020, the HOA slaps a lien on the property for almost $2,200. The homeowner says, whoa, that number's wrong. And a few months later, the HOA actually agrees. They file a release of lien and even admit in writing that the original notice had invalid charges. You'd think that's the end of it, right? But look at that last date. More than a year after the lien was officially released, the homeowner files a case about the legal fees connected to it.
And that is the absolute key to this whole thing. The lien itself, it was officially gone. Poof, vanished from the record. But the homeowner was still facing a bill for thousands of dollars in legal fees that the HOA's lawyers charged to create and then remove that faulty lien. And that's what brought them to court. So this brings us to the hearing. And it becomes clear almost immediately that the homeowner and the judge are having two totally different conversations. It's like they're talking past each other.
The petitioner lays it out, plain and simple. The lien is gone, sure, but there's still this bill for over $2,300. For them, the whole issue is about the fairness of being forced to pay for the HOA's mistake.
But listen to the judge's response. She immediately pivots. She says, I understand, but then she brings up that there's no enforcement action, meaning the HOA isn't actively trying to foreclose or put a new lien on the property. From her point of view, there's no fire for her to put out.
So the petitioner tries to bring it back to their main point. They focus on the idea of reasonable fees. Their entire argument is that these charges just aren't reasonable for a lien that was already proven to be invalid.
And the judge just brings it right back to her one single decisive point. She asks, is there a lien on your property? And then she answers her own question. There is no lien on your property. This exchange says it all. The homeowner is talking about a financial injustice, but the judge is only looking at a legal filing that has already been resolved.
So why was the judge so laser-focused on this one little fact? Well, it's because the case had a fatal flaw, one that was baked in from the very moment the paperwork was filed.
See, the petitioner filed their case under a very specific state law, in this case, an Arizona statute. And here is the absolute critical detail. This particular law is all about giving an HOA the power to place a lien on a property. Its entire purpose, its whole world, is about liens.
And this is how the judge's logic breaks down. The homeowner claimed a violation of the lien law, but that law only gives a judge jurisdiction. That's the legal power to make a ruling over existing liens. And since the HOA's lien had been released over a year ago, well, the conclusion was unavoidable. No lien means no violation of the lien law. Case closed.
It's really like trying to open a door with the wrong key. The homeowner had a real problem, a legitimate grievance about these fees, but they used a legal tool that was designed for a completely different lock. The judge's hands were, legally speaking, tied.
And you know, this is the part of the story that is just so frustrating. The judge, she actually seemed to agree with the homeowner's basic complaint about the money. During the hearing, the judge actually went through the HOA's legal bills herself. And as you can see here, the HOA was demanding over $2,300. But when the judge added up only the charges that were specifically for this homeowner's property, she got a number just over $1,000. She even pointed out that it looked like the HOA was bundling in all sorts of other costs, basically overcharging this one person.
So here's the kicker. Even with the evidence right there on the invoices, evidence that suggested a big overcharge, it was all legally irrelevant. Because the case wasn't filed as being about unreasonable fees in general. It was filed as a violation of the lien statute. And as we know, the lien was gone. And all of this brings us to the main lesson from this whole story. Having the right issue doesn't mean a thing if you file the wrong case.
So here's the core lesson, and it's a tough one. Being right about the facts just isn't enough to win. In the legal world, you also have to be procedurally correct. You have to make the right legal argument using the right law, just to give the court the specific authority, the jurisdiction, it needs to rule for you.
And honestly, nothing sums it up better than the judge's own words from the hearing. She said, "Are there things they may have done wrong? Not legally, but morally, ethically, maybe. I don't know. I don't get to decide those facts. I get to decide whether or not it's a violation of the statutes."
In the end, this ruling wasn't about what was fair or ethical or right. It was a ruling purely about jurisdiction. The court just didn't have the power to fix the homeowner's real problem because of how the case was presented.
And that leaves us with this one last big question. The judge's ruling closed this specific legal file for sure, but it didn't make that bill for all those legal fees just disappear. So what happens now to that original dispute? Well, that's a question that the law in this particular case left totally unanswered.